All right, welcome back to the C# Basics tutorials that I've been doing for the Advent of Code stuff. Today we're working on day 6. This is a retake. My first version of this video was not well done, so I'm redoing it. So calendar, excuse me, events 2015. 2015. You'll see that I already have them done, but ignore this. I will still work through it. Like I said, my first iteration was not well done, so I'm going to go ahead and start over. So the problem is, because your neighbors keep defeating you in your holiday house decorating contest year after year, you've decided to deploy 1,000,000 lights in a 1,000 by 1,000 grid. Furthermore, because you've been especially nice this year, Santa has mailed your instructions on how to display the ideal lighting configuration. Lights in your grid are numbered from 0 to 999 in each direction, so X 0 to 999 and Y 0 to 999. So it's 1,000 by 1,000, that's 1,000,000 lights. Each corner 00 to 099, 999, and 999 to 999, and 999 to 0. The instructions include whether to turn on, turn off, or toggle the various inclusive ranges given the coordinate pairs. Each pair of coordinates represents opposite corners of a rectangle inclusive. That's important because you want to make sure that you're including both corners of that coordinate system. The coordinate pair 00 through 22 covers 9 lights because 0 is the first one, 1 is the second one, and 2 is the third one, right, in both directions. So that's 9 total squares, or 9 total lights. The lights all start turned off. So to defeat your neighbors this year, all you have to do is set up your lights by doing the instructions Santa sent you in order. For example, you want to turn on 00 through 999 would turn on all 1,000,000 lights, or leave them on if they're already on. Toggle 00 to 999 would turn on the first row of 1,000 lights, turning off the ones that were on and turning on the ones that were off. 499 to 500 would turn off all lights or leave off the lights that were already off. After following the instructions, how many lights were lit? So let's go ahead and just start our project. As I have done in all of them, I'm going to create a console application. I'm going to name it Advent 20. Was it Advent 15 or 2015? Naming scheme 2015. 2015 dot day 06. All right, make sure you're putting it in your path that you want to put them in. So in this case, I want to make sure I'm in the Advent of Code folder. Boom. And as always, make sure you're on the right framework. Boom. As I have done in all my videos, I am going to create a new main function object. So public void main function. Okay, boom. And I'm also going to do the same stream reader as before. Okay. The problem with this one is they don't give you a, make sure you're using your right libraries. The problem with this one is that they don't actually give you any test data really that tells you what to do or what you should be seeing, which is kind of frustrating, but that's okay. We'll deal with it. Okay, so we're just doing our general setup that we do every time. You're making your data folder. You're making your item with your data in it. Okay, all delete. You're going to get your test data, which for some reason they put at the bottom. Okay. That's my test data. Boom. Okay, cool. All right, so what do we need to do first? All right, we need to take our data and we need to split it into different what's the phrase I want? Into different instructions, like individual instructions. So var instructions equals data dot split, and we're going to split it on return new line, and that should give us an array of instructions. Okay, so that's our array of instructions. Next thing we're going to do, so we've got our array of instructions. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a method. We're going to make it. We're going to have to make a class that we're going to return. So I'm going to call it public. I'm going to call it instruction. I'm going to have to make it. It's not made yet. So, and then we're going to call the method parse instruction. Okay. And we're going to pass in a string array, which we're going to call instructions. Okay. So that's our, we should call it raw instructions actually. These are our raw instructions that we're going to clean up and pass out. All right. So right now, we don't have an object to return. So let's make our object, right? Typically, when you're making objects, you want to have a folder for them. Normally, we call them models. And in your models, you're going to create a new class. And this is going to be my instruction item, my instruction object. Okay. Now, going back here, well, I can't do that yet. I'll show you what I was going to do. First thing you need to do is make your instruction class public. So that way you can access it from other parts of the file. And then you're going to make sure you're using your instruction object, or you're using the namespace where your instruction object exists. So the namespace here is the path to find it. It's in the Advent 2015 project, Advent 2015.day6 project in the models folder. That's the namespace. So when I go here and I want to make sure I'm using my namespace, that's the namespace I'm using. Okay, and you can see now that there is an instruction object there. All right. Sorry, my ankle hurts. Okay. So to set this function up, just as a basic, right now we're gonna create a new instruction. We need to make this a list. This needs to be a list of instructions, actually. So we're passing out a list of instructions because each line is going to be one instruction. So we want to make sure that we have an instruction for each line. So that's a list. List instruction instructions equals new list instruction. Okay, so we're creating a new list of instructions that we're going to return out. So we're going to return the instructions. Oops. All right. We should change this, like I said, to raw instructions, because this is our raw version of our instructions. So var instructions equals parse instruction, and we're going to pass in the raw instructions. Okay. Hopefully this is making sense to you at this point, but let me explain what's going on. So I made an array of strings that is our raw instructions on what lights to turn on and off or toggle. Okay. And so we're going to make a list of cleaned instructions, so cleaned ones that we can use, which are this instruction object. And that's what's going to come back out, is a list of them. Okay. We're then going to use that list to perform those instructions, but we're not to that point yet. We need to actually set up our instruction object and pass out and fill in the instruction object. So in our instruction object, what are some things we need? Okay, we need to know what the instruction is, so we're going to call that a flip. All right, so it's going to be a public, and it's going to be a string, okay? And we're going to call it a flip, and we're going to do our get set. Get set just sets it up to find and set the value in this object, okay? What else do we need to do? We need to have our coordinates for the instruction. So like your coordinates for what lights are going to be adjusted. And so there's 4 coordinates. You have your starting value, which is an xy value or yx value. So you want to start at coordinate y and coordinate x, and you want to end at coordinate y and coordinate x, and everything in that range is going to be adjusted. So we're going to set up 4 ints. Public int starting y. So that's our starting y value. Okay, we're going to do a public int starting x value. And then we're going to do a public int ending y value. And then we're going to do a public int ending x. So that's our ending x value. All right, so far so good. Now, one thing that's really important, especially as you start building bigger and bigger programs, you want to leave comments for what these objects are that you're using. A lot of people think the comments are more for like what's going on, which you can make comments for what's going on, but it's really important for making comments of what things are. Okay. So to do that, you can do 3 slashes. 3 slashes lets you set a summary for the object that you're commenting. Sorry, my son just woke up. Hi. Hi. Okay. So for this object, this is an instruction, or it's an object containing data on the instructions for lights to flip. Okay, so that's what it is. It's an object that contains the data with the instructions on what lights to flip. Now this object, this string object, is how lights should be flipped. Okay, this int object is the starting y value of lights to flip. This string int object is the starting x value of lights to flip. This int object is the ending value, or ending y value of lights to flip. And this int object is the ending x value of lights to flip. Okay, and going forward, you'll see me notating these things later more as the projects go, but I do it because when you hover these objects, you can see what they are. You get this tip, which is literally what I just typed, and you can do that outside of the class as well. So if I look at instruction, this is now, it now tells you what it is. It's an object containing the data for the instructions for lights to flip. Okay, and if I were to do instruction dot whatever and look at that object, it would show me what that is too. Okay, excuse me. So at this point, we have our object set up of what we're going to return. So let's figure out how to turn our raw instructions into usable instructions. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to do a for each loop where I loop through all the raw instructions. Var instruction. I'm just going to do var I in raw instructions. So for each item in these raw instructions that I passed in, I'm going to do a little bit of string manipulation. Okay, so first thing I need to do is I need to create an instruction object because this is a list of instruction objects. So I need to create an instruction object to add to the list of instruction objects. So I'm going to do instruction ins for instruction equals new instruction. Okay, so I set up my new instruction. That's what I'm going to add to list at the end. So at the end, I'm going to do instructions.add ins. Okay, so that'll add that object to the list of instructions. Okay, now our raw data, it has like different phrases, and the split is not going to be super easy to do yet. Okay, because like you got one word or you got two words, so you can't just like split on spaces and take the first object. Instead, what you're going to have to do, let me comment this stuff first. Okay, going back to my comment idea, main program default. This is the default method that runs at start. This is the redirected method to run at start, because that's what we're doing here. This is redirects it to this method here. Okay, and then this parse instructions method that we're making is a method that creates a list of instructions for turning lights on and off. All right, so that's what that is. Anyway, going back to what I was talking about. Because you can't really just split right at the beginning like this, what you're going to do actually is you're going to check the string and modify the string. But you can't modify a string that you're iterating through. So like I'm on the string that I'm iterating through is I. I can't modify I. So I'm going to create a new string. I'm going to call it clean. And that's going to equal I. Okay. Now I can use the I is the one I'm going to use for modifying the instructions and filling out the instruction object. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check what the string starts with. So if I dot or not I clean dot starts with, and the first thing I'm going to check for starting with is toggle on. Okay, if it starts with toggle on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take clean and remove the word toggle on. Oh, I can't remove the word. Sorry. What I'm going to remove, the way that remove works is you have to set your starting character that you're going to remove, which is, we're going to start at 0, which is the first character in the string, and how many you're going to remove after that. So for on, we're going to toggle off 8 because, and I'll tell you why. So you're going to remove the first 8 characters because toggle on with the space is 7. You also want to remove the space at the end of toggle on. So you remove 8 characters. Okay. Now, once you've done that, you can set ints dot flip. Okay. So that object that I created here, I created one and I called it int, and I'm setting this flip value in that instance to. It's a string, so you want to set it to toggle on. Okay. Now this is pretty straightforward. You can pretty much just copy paste this for the other 2 items or the other 2 options. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna do. But I'm gonna set it to else, and here I'm gonna set it to else. Okay, and I need to update this. So off is 1 more letter, so you're gonna remove 1 more letter here, and then instead of oh, it's not toggle, it's turn. Sorry. Not toggle, turn. On. turn on. That's why the letters don't match up. Sorry, I was thinking in the back of my head, it was like, that looks like more than 8 letters. Anyway. And then set this one to... Okay, and then this one's just going to be toggle. And so I can do toggle. Now, toggle with the space is actually 7 characters, so I'm only going to remove 7 off the start of the line. Okay, so this will set our instruction object with the flip value. Okay, so that's the first value. That's pretty easy to do. Now, when you've done that, you're left with a string of the coordinates, a space, the word through, and then coordinates, or a space, and then coordinates. Okay. So we're going to split this up. We're going to split that. We're going to split that up on the space and take our first set and our second set as our coordinates. Okay. So equals. Clean dot split. All right, have you? Okay. So we're gonna split it on the space, and to split it on the space, you do quotes with the space in there because that's what you want it to split on. Okay. So that'll give us an array. The first item in the array will be the starting coordinates, so it'll be a number, common number. Okay. And then it'll give us the word toggle, or through, the word through, and then another set of coordinates, which will be number, common number. All right. So knowing that, we need to break apart the first and the third items in the array into 2 new items. And those will be your starting and ending values, or coordinates. Okay. So var starting chords equals int split dot. Oh, we need to set which one we're splitting. 0, because the first one is 0, so we want to split up the first one. And we're going to split it on a comma this time instead of a space. Okay. So what this is now, this is an array object that has 2 items in it. The first item is your starting Y number, and the second item is your starting X number. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for the third item in the int split array. And the third item is at index 2 because starting at 0, right? And you're going to split it again on a comma, not a period, a comma, here. Okay. Now, once you've done that, you have your starting and ending Y and X values. So you can easily just put those into your ints, your instructions item, which is called ints. Dot. We're going to do starting Y. Okay. We're going to set it equal to starting chords at position 0 because the first one is your Y value. It's currently a string. So what you need to do is you need to parse that into an integer. So you can do that by doing int.parse and wrapping it in parentheses. Now you have your starting Y value. Okay. So because of X being the exact same thing, except for you're going to change the letter here to X, and you're going to change, instead of index 1, or index 0, you're going to change it to index 1. Not much. Again? I just changed him. Okay. I'll change him in a second. Okay. From there, we're going to do the same thing for our X values, or our ending values. So our ending Y is int.parse, but we're not doing starting chords, we're doing ending chords. Okay. And, oops. And for the X, again, it's not at index 0, it's at index 1. So when we do this, we have created our instruction object, we filled it out, and then we've added it to the list of instruction objects. And then when that's all done, we return the list of instructions. All right. So that's our parse instructions portion of the test, or of the project, what do I want to call it? Of the problem. Okay. And we can test this out by going, we're just going to break it and run. Okay. And if you look, you have your 300 instructions, and each of those is an instruction object. But if you open up each individual object, you can see, well, you start at this number and this number, and you end at this number and this number. And what it's going to do is it's going to toggle. Okay. And it, like I said, you can see that for all of the individual instructions. So we're good there. We got our list of instructions out. Now, what are we going to do with that list of instructions? What we're going to do is we're going to create a new method. Okay. This method is going to be a public what do I want to do? What do I want to do? I want to return a public. I'm going to return an integer because I'm going to this is going to change all the lights, and then it's going to count the number of lights that are on. So, well, I think I should probably, for the reason of separation of concerns, I want to return an array matrix. Okay, so I'm going to return an int array matrix. Okay, and what this is it's saying that I'm returning an array of arrays. I don't know how else to explain that. So it's going to be a coordinate system. It's basically a coordinate map. All right. And what I'm doing with that coordinate map is I'm going to turn the lights on and off and set the value to either 1 or 0. So if light at coordinate 1, 1 is 0, that light is off. If light at coordinate 1, 1 is 1, it's going to be on. Okay. So this function or this method is going to be called perform lighting changes. Okay, and what we're going to pass in is our list of instruction items, and that's going to be our instructions. Okay. Yes. Okay. So at this point, we're gonna do that var light grid, because we're gonna return the light grid out, equals perform lighting changes, and we're passing in the instructions to that, so that way it'll do those run the light instructions. Okay. Let's comment this. Sets up light grid and performs instructions. Okay. Yeah.
I just showed the block out there.
Okay. So because we're creating a grid of coordinates and we're returning that grid of coordinates, what we need to do is start by creating a grid of coordinates. So we're going to do an int array. That tells it it's a double array. We're going to call this light grid, and we're going to set it to new int array. Okay, and we know that it's going to be 1000 by 1000. So that's our light grid. Okay, so that's what we're going to return. All right, so that's our light grid. We're returning our light grid. Right now, all of them should start with a value of 0. So all we got to do at this point is write the perform instructions part, okay? Which should be pretty quick to do, okay? We're going to start with a for each loop, all right? And the for each loop is going to for var I in instructions. So for each item in our instructions, we're going to perform this thing. Okay. Now this is where we're going to double loop through stuff, and it's going to be super quick. Okay. So the first for loop is going to be to iterate through our y coordinates. Okay. So for int y equals I dot starting y y. Okay, so what it's going to do is you're going to take your instructions, you're going to get your starting y, you're going to start your iteration at that number. Okay, then you're going to run it until I is not I y is less than or equal to, or you're going to run it while it's less than or equal to I dot ending y. Okay, so until it hits the ending y, it's going to continue to run this thing. And every time it iterates, you're going to just y plus plus. Cool. What's next? Well, we need to do that same thing for the x values. So we're going to iterate through the x coordinates. So for int x equals I dot starting x, while x is less than or equal to I dot ending x. And you're going to iterate every time you iterate, you're going to x plus plus. Okay. Now, what are you going to do at each iteration? Okay. What you're going to do at each iteration is you're going to set your coordinates at the value to whatever the instructions say to set them at. Okay. So you're going to first off check and see what the instructions say to do. So if I dot flip equals. Now with strings, you don't want to do equals equals. You can, but you don't want to. You want to do string dot comparison, or string dot equals. Sorry, equals. And so you set the object that you're comparing. What are you comparing it to? You are comparing it to the word toggle or turn on. So if it says to turn on, close your parentheses. Okay. If it says to turn on, you're going to set light grid at the value of, what is it, yx? Yeah, that's what I did. So y comma x, oops, comma x equals 1. All right. So if it says to turn it on, you're going to set it to 1. Okay, because it doesn't matter if it's already 1, you still need to set it to 1. All right, because you want it to be on. Now, what's the next one? The next one is if it's turned off. So instead of setting it to 1, you're going to set it to 0. All right. And lastly, instead of turn on or off, you're going to, if it says toggle, you need to check and do if light grid at y x equals 0. You're going to set it to 1 because you need to switch it to the other value that it's not. Else, if light grid at y comma x equals 1, then you're going to set it to y comma x equals 0. Okay, so you're going to flip it to whatever it's not. Right? So this is going to set our light grid up. It's going to run through the lights. It's going to turn all of them on or off. Okay, and we can see that now. If I go here, I can go boom. My light grid, I have my 1000 by 1000, and I can see that. Come on. I should be able to find a light that's on. Or at least should be able to have lights that are on. Okay, set 1, set 0, sets if 0, set 1, else if. These are all else ifs. Okay, I'm gonna return my light grid, so that should be fine. So like I said, I should be able to find one that is on. Now there's a million lights. Come on. My mouse is being jittery. So there's a million lights. It's going to take a minute to run through them. So I'm just going to let this go for a minute until I find one that is on. So it doesn't look like there's any on in that first row. This is going to be a minute. Gosh, it takes a long time to rotate through a million lights. Looks like there's none in the second row that are on yet. Ugh, this is going to take too long. I don't want to do that. What we should do is we should just do our count. Be able to count the lights. Okay. So now we're going to do var light count equals. We're going to set up a new method, one last final method, where we count the number of lights that are on. So public, and it's just going to be an integer, count lights. We're going to pass in a int array, and we're going to call it grid light grid, just like before. So we're passing our light grid in here. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to count the numbers that are there. So we're going to create an int count. We're going to start it at 0, and then we'll iterate through and count up. So we're going to return count, and that'll be the return. So let's finish this. We're going to do count lights, and we're going to pass in our light grid here, and then that's that. Okay. What we're going to do here is we're going to iterate through. For each light in the light grid, you're going to go count plus equals light grid, or light, because the value in light is going to be an integer. Okay, so that's all it's going to do. It's going to count the number of lights that are on. All right, and that's a super fast method. Oops, I removed my breakpoint. Let's put that back so I can see what comes out of the light count. Okay, the light count counts 702,707, which I think matches, does not even come close to matching. Why does it not come close to matching? I want to leave that there. Let's break here. I want to break here. Okay, so light, 0. It's going to be easier if I break this on an if. If light equals 1, or light is greater than 0. If light is greater than 0, add it to the count. Okay, and then I'll break here so I can see what's going on. Oh, I put less than. Ha! The light's never going to be less than 0. If it's greater than 0, break. Okay, or yeah. So, okay, light equals 1. So So the next one should light equals 2, 3, 4. So something's happening that's turning lights on that are not supposed to be on, or not turning lights off that are supposed to be off. Okay, so let's look at this. If it equals turn on, if it equals turn off, or if it equals toggle. Did I do those strings right? Turn on, turn off, or toggle? Let's make sure I hit each one of these. Turn on, turn off, toggle. Okay. Yeah, should work. Okay, so we have a light that toggles. The first one should toggle. Let's step through that, make sure it works. If it's 0, should set it to 1. Okay, go. The next one should the next one toggles again. Wait, do we have 2 toggles? No, should turn off. So it did not hit the turn off. Something is not happening with the turn off. Okay, so the turn off method is not working. What did I do here? Turn on, turn off. That's because I set it to turn on. Typo. Alright, we should be able, that should run now. That should be fixed. Everything should work. Let's run it. Boom, boom. Our light count is now 543903. 543903. Perfect. Part 1 is done. Okay. Part 2 is super simple. All we got to do is change the rules from turn on to increasing the brightness by 1. Turn off, decreasing the brightness by 1 to a minimum of 0, cannot go below 0, but toggle increasing the brightness by 2. Right? That's super simple. All we're doing is, instead of turning them on or off, we're incrementing or decrementing them. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new version of the perform lights changes. Copy that. I'm going to, because what happened was he got revised rules. So we're going to do this. We're going to rename this to revised. Okay. And all we're going to do here is we're going to do plus equals 1 on turn on. For the turn off, we're going to add a catch. So it won't work if it's turn off and it is already at 0. So light grid at y comma x equals 0. So if it equals 0, it's not going to do nothing. But if it doesn't equal 0, we're going to minus 1. Okay, and then toggle. This is going to be a lot more simple. We're going to do, we're going to remove this. Come on. Okay, and we're going to just do light grid plus equals 2 instead of 1, because we're just incrementing by 2 according to the new instructions. All right, so now we're going to comment this part out, because that's the old way of performing light changes. Instead, we're going to do var. We're going to do the same thing, it's just going to be for the revised. So var light grid equals revised perform light changes. We're going to pass in the instructions still. Okay, boom. Now the way that I had written the count lights actually works still, because it plus equals instead of adding plus plus or something. Okay, so this should work exactly the same, just counts the lights differently and returns a bigger number, which is 19450,488, which is what the second part of my answer was. Oh no, it's not. Something else is happening that shouldn't happen. Oh, I bet you my off. I bet you my off was wrong. Yep. So it's going to run if it equals 0. We want it to run if it does not equal 0. So there's a difference. Okay. What I had done is this would run this minus 1 only if the light equaled 0. We want it to equal when it's not equal to 0. Let's try that again. Okay. And our light count is 146. 87245. 146-87245. 146-87245. Perfect. That is the right answer. Okay. Thanks for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to drop a like, follow, subscribe, leave comments, interact with the video so people can, so it'll pop up in other people's stream or views, and they can see what's going on and get some help with this. This one, like I said, the first take was really bad, so this take I'm hoping is a lot better for you guys, and makes a lot more sense. As I said, thank you for watching. Really appreciate everybody. Really appreciate all the support that you guys give me. I will see you guys in the next one.